Welcome to Booked All Night, the podcast for book nerds and storytellers who just don't sleep, but probably should be. I'm your host, Jessica Mary, and I'm joined weekly by Leigh and Magdalyn Ann to geek out about books and the craft of writing them. This week, we're discussing chapters 11 through 20 of ALICIA JASINSKA's This Fatal Kiss. And since we are no longer in the opening chapters, this is your one and only warning for spoilers. All right, my little Libranauts, buckle up, settle in, and let's launch into This Fatal Kiss. So, Alexei is blatantly a demon.
He is 100% a BS, for sure.
I was ready to argue about this. I have a whole list of things that I cited because I had sent Maggie a text after reading the first Alexei point of view, and I was like, this guy is not human. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, okay. Yep. So then I kept making notes going through that. So there's multiple times about demons who wear people like coats. That keeps getting said all the time. And then when he's talking to Rosa, I also suspect that his friends are not human, but I don't have as much to back that up. But like Rosa says, I thought you said he was above making such lowly human connections. You said he was hard to get to, which sounds like they're planning to like attack him. Like a lot of the ways that he talks about that Alexei talks about Khajiit is very like seeking prey.
I don't know about all his friends, but I agree with definitely Rosa.
Rosa.
Is definitely not a human either.
There's also, like, Alexei really sees Khajiit as a goal, and the way that he talks about him, he's like, oh, I'm willing to wage as many battles as required to achieve... He is willing to wage as many battles as required to achieve his goals to get what he wanted, who he wanted. Which is, like, a really weird way to talk about romance. And so I'm like, no, that's like very predatory. And he also says other things like they couldn't afford to get careless. It's a game to him when he and Rosa like eat and he like delights in the deception was another line in there.
Yes. I think before that picnic, I think also there was something about when we get, I think, Alexei's like point of view, he talks about like being really sick one summer as a child and then like to the brink of death, and then he said, all of a sudden he just gets better. And he became a different person. It's not that exactly, but it's summarized like that. Like he's a different person now that he.
I have that quote here. That's also on my list, and it was a new life had taken root inside him.
Yes.
And I was like, demon, you are a demon.
There was also the line where it says Alexei caught his own face reflecting in the metal and blinked, failing for a moment to recognize himself. And that was the first warning bell for me. I was like,
yeah.
He's a monster.
Also, whenever he's around, those blood petals are around, and they wonder about if Khajiit has ever taken his protection, his medallion off. And he's like, I wonder how I would get that off of him. And I'm like, yes, I wonder why you would want to get that off of him. Because you are a demon. Like, I was so focused on Alexei in this 10-chapter gap. Because I was just like, I don't trust you. And I'm supposed to like you.
I was just say a lot of his narration specifically references words like devouring, always constantly eating. He's got there was another line at the end of his first point of view chapter where he goes, he imagined sinking his roots deep into the earth, imagine letting this fragile body decay until the weeds grew up through its skeleton. And that just felt the most like he's for sure some kind of forest demon. Like there's too much of an emphasis on roots and earth for this to be normal.
There's also a bunch, like, whenever he's talking about Khajiit, whenever Alexei is talking about Khajiit, he describes him as food. He tells him, like, he's, like, delectable, and he's bite-size, and, like, all these other... He's like, oh, he looks so delicious. And I'm like, who says that
Yes.
unless you are planning to eat him because you are a skin suit wearing demon. So now I'm like stressed every time they're around him because I'm like, he's blatantly not,
Yes.
he's not good. And we're like, we were promised a poly relationship, and I am concerned because one of you wants to eat the rest of you.
This just furthers my agenda that it's going to be Gisela, Kajik, and I forget their name. The other Vodovnits. What's her name?
Yulia?
Yulia,
But
yes, thank you.
Yulia's like a lot older than them.
I think she
Yeah.
was only like 2 or 3
No,
years older.
she's-
Isn't that what the
she
narration
said-
said?
She is she was 20 years old when she died, and she has been there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she's like inappropriately older than them to be in that polycule, because Gisela would be 17, right? That was her thing, that she would never turn 17 because she got killed when she was 16, and she's been there for about a year. So she is 17, which that description is probably one of like my only beeps, but I have that with like a lot of supernatural things where they're like, oh, I was turned into a vampire when I was 17, and how long have you been 17? I haven't just been 17, right? Like, time has continued to pass. I am now 517 years old for whatever reason. I yell at you about your ship because she is wildly inappropriate to be in that relationship because she's so much older.
Are you talking about Yulia?
Yes.
I mean,
are YA readers going to care that much about that big of an age gap? I mean, obviously there was, Twilight and everything, but even ACOTAR, you've got...
I was just going to say...
You've got all the Fae who are hundreds of years old, and then What's-Her-Face is 18 or 17.
I know.
In the first book.
I know, but it's something that irks me personally.
Yeah, and I get that. But again, it's a supernatural story, and I think there's some leniency in supernatural romances, because I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to date someone who's like 570 years old, but I would date a 570-year-old vampire.
I'm just shaking my
it's
head.
The fantasy of it all. That's, I think,
We're a podcast. I got to clarify that I am shaking my head at the two of you. I'm going to jump off of Alexei for a moment, just to kind of talk about the other things that happened in this chapter. And there's that picnic, and Gisela is trying to sneakily get introduced to Alexei, which was very awkward and cringy for me. And she keeps saying things, and she keeps like dropping little things that she shouldn't about the spirit world. And she's like, oh, wait, no, I have to convince him that I'm human. And I think it's funny, having gotten through those 10 chapters and, blatantly calling Alexei out for being possessed, that she's trying to convince Alexei that she's human. And he probably knows right off the bat, because he's part of that other world, that he's like, oh, Rusalka, yeah.
Right. But what if he already knows, and he's already aware, which I believe he is, what was that reaction when she goes to hold his hand? Was it just because maybe he never felt that before? Or was it because he was so shocked that her hand is so cold? And a human's hand is not cold.
I mean, I get cold hands, and I like to stick them on my husband, and he kind of reacts like that.
Yes.
So I think that was maybe just like her hands are freezing because she's undead. And
that brings up a question though that I had, was how much of his demon backstory does Alexei know? Like, is it a memory that he has, or is he like truly method acting as this human called Alexei, and doesn't actually recognize creatures? Because he also sort of when they saw the house. I mean, essentially,
he really got into his role.
I have a theory about that, actually. I think maybe he's not fully a forest demon. Maybe he's like half and half, which is why his eye color are two different, colors. And that maybe he's like on the verge where he made a deal or something where like he is walking the human world, but also walking the demon world at the same time.
Yeah, because he does have that, like, weird illness, and then he is kind of dead for a moment, and then he comes back.
And then he has two different colored eyes.
Was it ever specified that he got his second eye color after that particular sickness?
No, I don't know. I don't think that it was.
Or has he just had heterochromia?
I don't think either is specified. But I don't remember.
our first headcanon of the podcast. Oh, there's also like a bunch of world building that gets dumped in there as they talk about the spirits that they know. And I had questions about the world, which I know we addressed last time, where we were like, what year is it? Because so much of it feels like the world, like the fantastical world, exists within this world, but is hidden. And now it doesn't. Now it feels less like that because we get a little more about Gisela and where she was when she was alive, and that she lived on an island ruled by a witch queen, and there were a whole bunch of witches there. And I'm like, wait, so it's not that like half-world suburban fantasy that I thought that it was as it was presented in the first half?
No, it seems like it's full fantasy at this point.
No,
is it?
Yeah.
Is it a cloud island or is it just an island?
I believe it's an island. She said she was like, that's where she lived, and her father was very neglectful, and it drops on there that she I didn't write down the exact quote, but the world building that gets dropped is that the island was run by witches, and nobody is like, oh yeah, witches, because the only other person to mention witches so far has been Kajik, and he's like, well, they can do whatever they want. And so it sounded like they were part of that secretive other world that was happening. But now it's like, wait, but if everybody knows that there's a witch queen, then is it just full fantasy or this kind of fantasy light that was happening?
I mean, I definitely think it was second world fantasy from the start. You know, because there's a lot of like, obviously there's a lot of borrowing from European culture and all that. Obviously the Polish language, but we never really kind of get any other kind of history. And I don't remember if the first 10 chapters mentioned, obviously they didn't mention the Witch Queen and all that, but I don't remember if it mentioned any sort of like continent names or country names. And like, I think the only thing that really tripped me up is the fact that there are buses. Yeah. And a lot of like the dialogue does feel a little modern. But I don't know if I ever thought it would have been like a suburban fantasy.
Yeah, like I kind of got that feel at first because of the buses and the trains and that level of technology that was there. And I figured this just kind of existed beneath the non-magical world, I guess, of what you would call it. And I get a little confused about what's getting presented. I mean, like, I like what's getting presented. I'm not sitting here like, oh, I want to pick it apart. I mean, I do want to pick it apart because that's who I am as a person. But I think its presentation is weird. Like, I feel like it keeps expanding, and we're like 20 chapters in, and I still don't necessarily have a whole feel for the world that, like, I keep learning new things about it, about its basics, I think, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, the world building has sort of been weirdly paced the way that it's been going. We didn't get a lot up front, and that kind of set us up for all the confusion that we had in the first 10 chapters. And we did get like I never really kind of made the connection that, because in Leshnevada, some people believe in magic and spirits and demons, and some people don't, and it's sort of treated like a little bit like a fairy tale, especially what with all the things that Kajik does. Right,
and that comes up too in this section with the house spirit with Domek, when they go to rehouse him, that, you know, they call up and they're like, hey, you didn't take your house spirit with you. And they're like, oh, oops. Like,
I need to point out, first of all, for the pun, but also because the nickname they give the house spirit literally means house. So they're just going around calling him House. Rehoming him is sorry.
No. So I love when fantasy borrows from other cultures and other languages and things. I think one of my favorite authors is an author whose name now escapes my mind. She wrote Labyrinth Law, Zoraida Cordova. There we go. And in the second book of that series, there's a part where the middle sister like puts her hand out and she casts magic, and what she says is meant to be push, but what my Kindle translated it as was divorce. So I am happy that my Kindle correctly went with house when it meant house, and I got to enjoy that little pun and that humor as well, being confirmed by Maggie, because I don't speak Polish, because Polish is terrifying.
What do you mean?
There's no vowels!
We only have every single consonant in the world. I completely lost track of what we were talking about.
We were talking about Domek and the world building around him, and how some people are like, there's no spirits, and some people are like, there are definitely spirits, and how that definitely came up when we met Domek, who was the house spirit that got left behind and was now haunting the house. And they go to call the family that owned it prior, and they're just like, oh, oops, we forgot to bring him, but we live abroad now. Like, there's...
Or they didn't know that he was there at that point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, only the mother who had passed away, she grew up with him and she took care of him, and I don't think the kids knew about him. And it's really sad because in the end, like, kind of feel for him, and I'm hoping he stays with Kazakh and he's just like his little house demon. And I think that's where we're going, because they place him in Kazakh's house for, temporarily to get a hold of the kids. And he's just like, this house is a mess. And I'm like, he's going to start cleaning it and he's going to stay there. And I will love that.
Khajiit's little menagerie of demons.
That is actually a thing I want to point out, is at Khajiit's point of view in chapter 19, where we get them finally talking to the Domovik, and he says, I sensed an evil presence entered the house. I didn't know you were a powerful witch with demon servants. Specifically, that plural, which I think all but confirms Alexi's a demon of some type.
And Gisela is just like seeing all this stuff happening and is just like, oh no, it's not Alexi. He's so totally human. And
I have somehow managed to get wind and flower petal powers, and I protected us.
Yeah, she's like, it's literally anybody else. The house spirit must be protecting us from the house spirit. Like, girl, wake up. He is a demon.
Yes. He's such a demon. And I feel like, yeah, he might be the villain of this story at some point, but I think I don't know. I feel like he's going to have a redemption arc, and that's how they're going to wind up in a polyamory relationship, and it might be Rosa who's ultimately the super villain.
I do think that if we're sticking with Alexi being the third in their poly coupling, that Alexi is going to have a redemption arc, or like there's an exorcism where it banishes the demon, and then regular human Alexi is like,
yes,
I didn't know that was happening. Can I smooch you? For real this time.
Because that's another thing. If Alexi is not human and he kisses her, what happens? Like, nothing happens? Or
ooh, that's a good point.
His lips get really cold.
Is it like Rogue, where she sucks the human out of him and he just dies? Because they're talking about that potion too, where if she takes it, she can become human, and then she can get Alexi to kiss her. But if he's not human and she doesn't know,
will it? I don't think it's gonna happen.
Okay, so what if she takes the potion and she kisses him, and it's kind of like a Shrek kind of thing, where it's like, take love's true form, and so she just changes the kind of demon that she is.
It does say in the book that it does change her into a human, but only for so long. And then if she doesn't get kissed, or if she doesn't turn into an actual human, she becomes like a ghost, like so far beyond what she is, and she won't even be recognizable, and she'll just be this like floating presence,
which is like extra sad.
Absolutely.
Like our undead little mermaid just wants a kiss. Like poor little.
So she's got to be 150% sure that whoever she's kissing is 150% human.
Yeah, but she's like really dumb about that. And there's so much in here where like we were talking about it before we started recording, but it's just like my notes for this chapter, aside from highlighting all the things where I'm like, Alexei is evil and he is a demon and he is a skin suit and a coat person, is just me going, Gisela, no. What are you doing? No, Gisela, no. Yeah.
Get the spray bottle. Now.
Like,
I can totally see a scene happening where she's about to get a kiss from Alexei. She thinks that she's finally going to turn into a human, and it doesn't work, right? And she's confused, she's concerned, and that's when we kind of get the reveal that Alexei is, he's a BS. He's Alessi. He's one of the wood demons, right? And she is devastated. He's like, ah, ha, 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 my plan, whatever. Does a villain monologue, and then she's upset. She goes to Kashyyyk, and Kashyyy's like, well, what? And then he kisses her, like, spur of the moment, or after, like, an emotional scene, and that's when she's like, I am human, I think. And it's just, that's how I am envisioning the climax.
Yeah, I think that Kashyyyk is going to be the one that kisses her that turns her human.
Yeah.
Or we're going to get, like, a very sad ending where she just turns into sea foam and she's dead. Like, I just... Yeah, I don't think that Alexei is going to be the kiss. I think that Kashyyyk 100%. And it's really weird because, you know, like we're told that like there's going to be a poly romance here, and because of the viewpoints we're like, okay, well, Alexei I guess will be part of that queue. And it just, I don't know, like, is it because I think he's a demon, but I don't feel like he clicks with the other two, like in the same way that like Kashyyyk and Gisela have chemistry. Yes. And I feel like Alexei and Gisela, they have like a good friendship. And they like, especially the way that they tease Kashyyyk, like that's a friendship way to do that, where, you know, you just tell your friends that they're small and they're little and you dangle things over their head. Like it doesn't feel like flirting. It doesn't feel like chemistry on their part. And the same thing between Kashyyyk and Alexei. I don't feel like they have a spark there. Like, so I
disagree. I think that Alexei and Kashyyyk do have a spark, at least from Kashyyy's point of view. Alexei still very much feels like he's a cannibal. He's going to try and eat him, literally, rather than, you know, in the fun, sexy way. But I think Kashyyyk, because it's very obvious Kashyyy's had a crush on him, right?
Yes.
And I think that at the very least, there's definitely a one-sided bit of chemistry on that end.
Yeah, and that's also kind of what I mean. Like that, both of the relationships toward Alexei are toward Alexei. I don't feel like any of the emotion comes from him. And I don't know that that's because I'm like, you're a demon in a person suit, or because there is no chemistry there. I mean, like, we have like, I don't know, 20 more chapters to get through, and I'm sure it'll come out a little bit more then. But I don't feel like right now it comes out that way. Right now, I'm very focused on the fact that this man very clearly wants to eat these two.
I mean, I also think we've only had like, what, one or two, maybe two chapters told from Alexei's point of view. Mm-hmm. So all of the narration that we've gotten so far in the 47% of this book that we've gone through has been Kashyyyk and Gisela.
Oh, that's true.
And we only see Alexei like once or twice. I don't even think twice. I think maybe just the once where we get all the parts about all the narration about him, you know, devouring and sinking roots and delighting in the deception.
And looking at bite-sized people. Yes. That's actually a really good thing to point out, that we don't have enough Alexei point of view. So I mean, that could absolutely influence how I'm feeling about that.
There's also just not like a feeling of familiarity with them, but like Alexei went into Kazyyk's house.
Oh yeah,
without like being invited or permission. I don't think he was just gonna go in the house and eat him. He might have. I don't know. But
Right,
it
because
just like,
Kashik's got the protections on his
Yes.
house where like you can't enter if you have ill intentions toward him, which is why Gisela was able to sneak into his room
right.
a couple chapters ago.
Right. So he just walks into this person's house who's he has known since they were kids, but like they weren't like friends. It's just like, oh, Alexi's just a nice guy and is friendly towards everyone, and Kazik clearly has something for him, but like is a loner and doesn't and pushes everyone away, and really hasn't had any like super close interactions with Alexi as far as we know. But this man just walked into his house and then, you know, goes and watches him pick herbs and stuff from like a gravesite and, you know, talks to him and just like, oh, you have a friend? Like, who's that's crazy. I never knew you to have a friend. And then, you know, so it seems like there's some familiarity there with Kazik and Alexi, and maybe as you guys stated, we don't see it because we don't see his chapters as of yet. All we're getting is Kazik and Gisela. I'm sorry, Kazik and Gisela. So yeah, like I don't know. I don't know. I have mixed feelings when it comes to Alexi and his true intentions and feelings, but I'm definitely 150% behind.
Yeah,
he's a demon.
When I read that first point of view, I was like, oh man, I do not trust you at all. Oh, but yes,
Yeah.
I agree with all of this. I think we're just not getting enough. Oh, I love my note here. We get a point of view from blatantly not human Alexi, followed by Alexi is not human, an essay by me. That's just what I wrote here in my lovely little notes.
Welcome to my TED Talk. Alexi is a demon.
There is something that I do want to bring up.
Yes.
And that is between Granddaddy Water King
and Babsha.
Yeah, grandmother.
They had a thing going on. They were bumping booties, old people styles.
Oh, you made it gross.
Oh,
you made it gross.
I wasn't gonna go that far. I think I know there's something between them. I don't know what it is, and also I also have a theory that. But I also feel that maybe he might have had a thing with Kajik's mom.
Ooh.
Because wasn't she on drugs? And
yeah, but she also like left when he was young. That's why he was brought up by Bakchos, because she went off. She left Leshnavada. I don't know if she did.
But maybe Kajik is
half Rusau,
a result,
half or at least descended from.
Yeah.
And that's why maybe the Granddaddy Water King was just like checked in on Kajik's grandmother and was really upset when she passed away, and they didn't really have any true beef.
Yeah, I wonder if their relationship was more kind of like an echo of what Gisela and Kajik have, in that, oh man, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, no, so I think the relationship is there to echo what Kajik and Gisela have.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
To definitely be like, oh, well, like there was this very deep friendship that happened there, but at the same time, I don't believe that it was a friendship just because of the way that Wojciech remembers it. You know, he's like, oh, and you know, you were so upset that night, and that's why he wasn't out. And like, so there's so much crossing over for that night when Gisela died that I don't think that relationship was just a friendship. You know, the way that
okay,
the way that it gets said that it like broke him. You know, I think it was much deeper, and I think maybe Kajik is Wojciech's grandson.
Yeah,
maybe
because he's got those special abilities too. I mean, I think his grandmother had them.
Yeah,
but I think maybe he has them in a different capacity. Yeah. Because of that. But there's definitely something there, something on a deeper level. I just don't 100% know exactly what it is.
What do we think actually happened to Gisela on the night of her death?
Well, I think that
because there's a lot of crossover, obviously, and like Babcha and Wojciech were somehow tangentially involved.
Yeah.
And we get the snippet in the early parts of the book where she remembers being chased. I might be misremembering, but Bakcha was dealing with the forest spirits at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think, well, because one got away,
Mm-hmm.
and which we know, and I think that he probably chased Gisela to her point of death. I don't know if it was into the river or he killed her, and then, that was her like traumatic end that she wants to, she has to get revenge for that, in order to come back as another option besides the kiss. And then that particular wood spirit, that particular wood demon is the one that took over Alexi's body. So maybe by his death, because that's,
Yeah.
you're killing the spirit that's in Alexi if you kill him.
I agree.
That would be the revenge that Gisela would need to become human, and that is a very tragic ending, I think, especially if they do actually end up becoming like a proper poly couple, and
Yes.
there are actual feelings involved between them.
I wonder if another option is because Gisela doesn't really think like at all. I'm just gonna like there's no direction because the process does not happen,
Not a single thought behind those literal dead eyes.
No neurons firing up here in her brain sometimes. Yeah, not a single thought. What if she realizes that Alexi is involved in killing her and she goes the revenge route and she just kills him? Like, not even thinking about the blatant demon that is inside him.
Ooh, and then double tragedy because she exorcises her when that happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bam,
We
bam.
just made this all very sad. Our headcanons and predictions are very depressing, guys.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also all over the place as well, so...
They are. No, they are. Just like Gisela. Gisela is also all over the damn place. Oh, last week we were talking about Wojciech obviously getting in the way of whatever she's doing. And he does in here because he takes her comb.
Mm-hmm.
The comb that gives her all the magic powers to, like, keep herself wet and get back to the river. And surprised he just didn't take a teacup. Just chink. I liked that scene where they're sitting by the fountain and Wojciech's like, Leigh, hey, come home. Like, I thought I made a good home for you. Everybody loves you. You've left a terrible past behind. Like, you can just make a life here. It's okay. And she's like, no, I want to kiss him.
Well, because she also goes on to say, like, she wants to go back so she can, go back to protecting her brother, to raising her brother, because her father's never around. And Wojciech's kind of like, well, you don't have to be the parent anymore.
Yeah. Wojciech hits, like, some big therapy notes there. And he's like, it's not your responsibility. And he'll be okay. And, like, you should focus on you for a little bit and just kind of come down and be cool. And she's like, no. She's kind of very bratty in that scene where she's like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. I want to go. I want to get this kiss. I want to go. And he's like, okay.
She sounds like every know-it-all 17-year-old who thinks they know what's best. And, Wojciech's the parent, like,
right, Daddy, I'm 16.
and then Wojciech's just like, yeah, no, I'm the old one here. I know what's actual truths of the universe. You are small and hormonal. Stop it. Your frontal cortex has stopped developing and probably will never develop because you're 17 forever now.
Gisela also brings up, she talks about protecting her brother and wanting to be there for him and kind of being like a parent. And then she also brings up how she kind of regrets, like, going on dates because, like, or she misses going on dates, but also the fact that her brother was there because she had nowhere to leave him. Like, she had to, like, watch him. And I think I'm just going to keep calling him Granddaddy Water Demon or Water King. He's right. Like, you don't have to be a parent anymore. Like, you can do whatever you want. You can just go have fun. Like, I know you can't be a human and get all that stuff, but, like, you can at least make the most out of it. And she's just like, no, I want to go back. But it's just interesting how she's like, no, I want to protect my brother. But then we also see that she can't live a normal human girl's life because she has to bring them on dates and bring them here and bring them there. And she has to be that parent at 16.
Yeah. Which is always, like, really sad. She's like, cause she's not only parenting her brother, she's parenting herself. And part of her issue is, she finally goes on they go on vacation to Lesnovoda, and she finally has like a little vacation, and she takes a little walk, and she gets attacked and dies. I mean, that's part of the trauma here, and part of the regret is that for the first time that she did think of herself, look what it resulted in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and those connections are obviously there. I do also want to talk about the bedroom scene when Gisela she climbs up to his second floor window, which he left open because it's really hot. And he's like, my bedroom's on the second floor. She's like, I'm good at climbing. Like, of course. Yes, that's exactly what I would think of a water spirit, is that you're good at climbing.
It's very much giving Hufflepuff, we're particularly good finders.
Yes. Yes, it really is. And there's so much humor in that scene, but it's also a really cute bonding scene between Gisela and Khajiit, where they're both just kind of like getting some stuff out and getting comfortable with each other and still calling each other out for very silly things, right? So there's a part where Khajiit is just like, well, you were stalking him. And she says, I wasn't stalking him. I was merely attempting to observe him from afar. It's only stalking when you follow them home.
Right.
Like, this is adding to my concern about what Gisela was like as a human girl, because I don't feel like all of the very kind of deranged things, right? As Wojciech calls her, my sweet deranged summer child. Like, I wonder how much of it is the turn, because the other Rusauki don't really sound like that, with the exception of when she talks about them, and he's like, oh, well, what do you guys do for fun? Oh, we like to capsize the tourists in their boats. Like, oh, okay.
I think that's what I would like. I just want to swim around on their boats and flip them over.
Because we get a lot of the Rusauki like doing stuff like that, and like the perception to them is, oh, we're just having fun, we're just dancing in a field. Meanwhile, to like the human perception, it's this girl is dancing in the wild, clearly hopped up on some kind of drugs or something, and is very confused, all alone. Meanwhile, the Rusauki are out in the bushes just giggling about it. Like, they very clearly have different perceptions on what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's normal to them. And I'm wondering how much of that is, especially in Gisela, is about her forgetting her humanity and being replaced by sort of this demon mind now that she's a Rusauka. And, you know, whether or not she's going to lose or keep that if she turns back to human.
Yeah. There are some other points that she makes too with that, so I do wonder if like it's that crossover where she says it would be great if he gets hurt just a little, so she could nurse him back to health. And I'm like, girl, have you what? I'm serious. Most of my notes in the actual doc on my Kindle is just, girl, what? Why? What is wrong with you?
Okay, but is that normal, like 16-year-old behavior though, or like thought process?
All right, look, I was boy crazy. I was boy crazy as a kid. I was never thinking, you know what? If I just capsize him and drown him just a little, and then I could help him, like,
yeah, that's
feel
the
like
line that's definitely being crossed.
That's approaching a line. That's a little like, I'm just going to drown my 4-year-old brother and drug everybody in the house.
I'm not saying that her going through with it is normal. I'm saying the thought, like, oh, let's put him in some like compromising position, and maybe
I'm suddenly very concerned for your husband.
I am also concerned for him.
I think there's a difference between the fantasy of it, like, oh, imagine if, you know, he got hurt and I could nurse him back to health. I could catch him when he falls, kind of like, oh, that'd be romantic, versus the, you know, I want to just drown him a little bit. Like, I feel like there's Gisela's definitely stepping over a line that, you know, was there at some point, but not anymore.
Again, I'm just saying, thinking it versus actually going through with it. That's all I'm saying.
I think my issue is that I feel like Gisela would go through with it, like without, you know, Jiminy Cricket Khajiit, that to be like, no, don't do that. That she would. that if she were pursuing this guy on her own, that she'd be like, oh, yes, come to the water. Because that's what she did with the other guys, right? That's why Kajik's got a whole list. He's like, no drowning, no tickling, no this, no that. Like, she's clearly gone after some other guys trying to get this kiss, and she's tried to drown them. She's just tried to drown them. I don't think it said that she's ever successfully drowned somebody.
No, because isn't it like...
Because I think she doesn't realize.
Yeah, I don't think either of them realize what they're doing. She thinks that she's just going to get a kiss, and they're like drugged up in a way, thinking, oh yeah, this girl's like, we're just swimming and tickling each other, which is always a good combination.
And then I think last two things that I really do want to talk about is that Babsha and Zuzana both had dreams about Kajik.
Mm-hmm.
And they involved these black petals. And I just wanted to be like, oh, you mean like Alexi's petals that just come up and just show up? And then there is that flash that Gisela had of her death, where it's a rain of red petals, clearing circled by towering trees, heavy branches creaking in the wind, a pained cry, and a golden-haired figure hunched over in the grass. And I just want to be like, you know who that is.
Yes. He's standing right next to you when it happens.
Yeah, he's standing next to you. You're touching him. And it was just like, sometimes, and by sometimes I mean like almost all the time, I'm very frustrated with Gisela. Kajik is also constantly frustrated with Gisela, and I feel for him. And we end this particular chunk of chapters where Gisela is telling the nymphs that, you know, all right, Kajik is helping me to get this kiss, because they confront her and they're like, why are you hanging out with this guy? And then Kajik runs off with Alexei.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what the? I thought it was funny.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what that is.
Yes.
I'm so, like, excited to read on.
Yeah, I am too. I'm really enjoying this, and I'm sad that we took like a little break in between this because of the holiday, so I'm excited to get back to reading the next gem chapters. Any final thoughts from anybody before I go and wrap up the episode?
I'm just really, I want to know the background between Granddaddy Water King and Kajik's grandmother. I really do. Like,
Voyage.
I mean, I know, but I'm just so afraid of mispronouncing it.
Everybody gets new names. This is Bob and Bobette and Babetta Bobby Sue. All right.
But like, I don't know. I'm really interested in the story that's happening between the main characters, but I don't know. I'm like, give me more. Like, give me more of that. And the teacups.
Yes. Let's go back to the teacups, where I want to explore your collection, sir. That's a wrap on this episode of Booked All Night. Make sure to subscribe to the show, leave a review, and share your favorite episodes. We're a small corner of the internet, and every little bit helps. If you want more book recs, book friends, and the chance to sit in on our author interviews, then join our Discord server by visiting the link in our bio. We'll be running our first giveaway there when we reach 100 members, and all of our interviews will be on the stage, so you can watch, listen, and even play along with our guests. Booked All Night is produced by Rob Cook, so when you share your favorite episodes, be sure to say hi to our guy in the sound booth. Join us next week for chapters 21 through 30 of This Fatal Kiss. Until next time, my little Libernauts, this is Jessica Mary, Leigh, and Magdalyn Ann reminding you all to stay booked all night.